Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. So we'll be looking for a new wave of capital controls, exchange controls. According to the financial press, the International Monetary Fund, the keeper of this monstrous Washington consensus, which used to try to sabotage exchange controls and capital controls, has now basically given up on trying to sabotage them. Fine. Remember, this is not the ultimate answer. This is a short-term self-defense measure, but it's now time to start jettisoning the other speculation, pro-speculation, pro-financier aspects of this globalized system, which has failed so miserably around the world from 1990 until now. And one of the predicaments of the U.S., the plight of the U.S., is that the U.S. is overwhelmingly identified with this system. To a large degree, the system was designed by James Baker III, the leading light of that center-right ruling class faction, which we've told you about, behind Obama in a very general way, and now probably losing influence to the right-wing Rupert Murdoch group, the Rupert Murdoch and George Shultz group. And we can see the interesting thing, as I point out at Tarpley.net, the 5-point program of George Shultz for the economy is identical to the Tea Party program. So it ought to be clear who's pulling the strings. There are no original ideas, no original economic ideas from anybody calling themselves Tea Party or masquerading as Tea Party or anything of the sort. But let's look back now. The unelected, unaccountable, illegal Fed, who ought to be nationalized, right? They ought to send some federal marshals over there and put the place under Treasury control. We'd have to get rid of Geithner, I suppose, in the process. Maybe he'd resign in indignation. Certainly get rid of Bernanke. That would be easy to do. We'll talk about the firings in a minute. But the kinds of harbingers of hyperinflation that we've got. Cotton is up 100% year to date. Gold is up 30% year to date. Soybeans are up 27% year to date. Copper up 21% year to date. Crude oil up 9%. And again, this is about $87, $88 a barrel. Could that be hyperinflation? Well, yes, it could be. It's a little bit too soon to tell because there are countervailing forces. Notice that one thing we don't point to right now is the dollar compared to the euro. Because, interestingly enough, despite the overwhelming weakness of the dollar, the U.S. strategy of using hedge funds and credit default swaps to attack the peripheral countries, the smaller European Euroland economies, Euroland in particular, that is still bearing fruit. They have not quit with that. Right? Again, that has been the dominant thing propping up the dollar over the last year, is an attack on Europe. Small wonder that the Europeans are angry, and they express that in other ways. But now let's look at Ireland. Ireland remains in trouble, and the idea is that the Irish crisis, which we've reported about, right, they've had some pretty dramatic moments. Ireland remains in crisis, and this can indeed be it is the cause already of significant weakness. The euro going down several cents. I think it was up to 142, and then it gets down to 139, 138, and so forth. So you can see this is the effect. Italy and Spain are coming under attack by these speculative forces. And in addition to Ireland, Italy, Spain, we've got, as usual, Greece and Portugal are on the agenda. And now for the first time, Belgium pops up as another possible target for Anglo-American hedge fund wolf packs using credit default swaps. And again, they do it for money, but they also do it to prop up the dollar. Amazing. Weak as the dollar has been, the euro in the past week or two has been weaker. This is beggar my neighbor. This is, if you will, competitive devaluation of a certain kind, exporting the depression, more accurate. Now, the Germans have a trick up their sleeve, and this is highly interesting. Germany wants a provision that if a European country defaults, they have got to restructure their debt, meaning write it down, meaning the bondholders, the speculators take it on the chin. It is a way to shift the losses from taxpayers to speculators. And that's the German position. So all kinds of interesting things coming from Schäuble and the right-wing government of Germany. It's a situation where the Socialist International, with these people like Papandreou and Socrates and Zapatero and the rest of them, they are so wretched, and on the Iceland government too, they've all struck out to such a degree that the initiative passes to the sort of center-right, maybe traditional capitalists. The smokestack barons of the Ruhr, maybe, coming back in some slightly altered form. Anyway, at the G20, we have Barroso, the president of the European Commission, the head Eurocrat and head Eurogork, vowing to support Ireland, and the spread, despite this speech, the spread, the additional interest you've got to pay to insure Irish bonds with the credit default swap compared to German bonds, this has now reached a new record. So what's the problem with Ireland? It's the banking system. The cost, again, for 2 or 3 zombie banks, it's $50,000 for every household, or maybe it's for every person in Ireland. Now, how could these losses occur? Again, you wipe out the entire bank, it wouldn't get to be that, but with derivatives, the wonderful genius of derivatives, the credit default swaps, combined with collateralized debt obligations, wrapped up in structured investment vehicles with securitized and other asset-backed securities, this makes possible losses of 50 to 1, 100 to 1, 200 to 1. So outlaw derivatives, outlaw credit default swaps. They're supposed to be insurance, but they're not, because you haven't met the legal requirements of having capital and the other prerequisites for being an insurance company. Ban collateralized debt obligations. They are too toxic. National Public Radio reported this week they had bought a piece of a toxic asset, which they called Toxie. They paid $1,000. They got back less than $500, and now the thing has gone belly up completely. The thing has gone completely bankrupt. The only thing to do with toxic assets, wipe them out, get out the shredder, press the delete button, outlaw some, tax the rest into oblivion. So Ireland, watch out for Ireland. And naturally, our policy for Ireland is the same as elsewhere. No cuts, no cutting, no gutting. Zombie bankers take it on the chin. Zombie bankers go through Chapter 11 reorganization, if they can, probably can't. Otherwise, Chapter 7 or the local equivalent, liquidation. And in the liquidation, derivatives get wiped out. Derivatives have no value. They have negative value. They're a black hole of bankruptcy, and we have a special disintegrator ray that works on them, and it's called just canceling them, right? They go into the shredder and into the delete box, and then you press the button, and that's the end of them. We've also got depression signals inside the U.S. economy. Let's take the case of Menasha, Wisconsin, which is a town formerly industrial. They had an attempt to reindustrialize themselves with a steam plant, but that has gone bankrupt on them, and they owe $23 million in principal on short-term debt, so they're fighting lawsuits. Menasha, Wisconsin is bankrupt. This is where a real president, if we had such a thing, would step in and say, okay, we're going to take you over. We're going to, or the governor of a state with federal backing, with revenue sharing, could come in and save such a town. We'll be back in a minute.